to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me, the Open Meeting Act is posted on the wall over there. Second item on the agenda is consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. Approve agenda as submitted. Receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting, and receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Any councilman want anything removed? If not, would a councilman please make the motion? Since Mr. Frayland's not here, or Mr. McLean's not here.
You want me to do it?
Sure.
Mayor, I move that all the items in the consent agenda be considered routine by the City Council will be discussed and acted by one motion. No separate discussion of these items unless council member requests. There we go. Is that it?
Works.
Second.
Your vote, please. And that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, for stepping in there. Appreciate that. Okay. Since this is a work session, we don't have any resolutions or ordinances. We'll move on to number 6, public forum. The purpose of public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the City Council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the City Council this time. Anyone here for the public forum? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to discussion reports. Auditor's report. You guys are up.
We don't talk about that. Sure. Hello. This is Abby Dobson. She's a director with Forbiz, and she completed our audit this year. You'll notice that in the past we usually have BKD, so I just wanted to clarify that Forbiz is just the new name for BKD. So stuck with the same auditors. Abby's been doing our audit for quite a few years now. We'll say a long time.
7,
I don't know
longer
exactly
than
how
that.
many offhand. But I'll pass it off to you, Abby.
I don't know that I like that she used the word stuck, but
Shoot.
come on, Hannah. So as Hannah mentioned, my name's Abby Dobson. I'm an audit director with our Nebraska practice with Forbiz. As Hannah mentioned, BKD, Legacy BKD as we called ourselves, merged with a firm called Dixon Hughes Goodman effective June 1st, and between the two firms together formed Forbiz. So Forbiz is now the 8th largest public accounting firm in the country. Still getting a little bit used to the name. The name itself, Forbiz, stands for the two words forward vision, the first 3 letters of each. And that's what we really are striving to do, provide forward vision in accounting and financial reporting matters for our clients and help be truly that advisor as it relates to the audit relationship. You've got 2 documents, I believe, either in front of you in your packet or maybe provided electronically. The first of which is, mine's not quite as color pretty as yours, but what we would term our audit communication letter. And the second of which is the audited financial statements put together in what's called an annual comprehensive report, or an ACFR is what I'll kind of refer to it throughout the presentation. I want to touch on one thing in the ACFR first that's really the piece that everybody cares about when it comes to an audit, and then we'll go through the letter, which kind of provides a good roadmap for the document. So within the auditor's report, the ACFR, within the financial statement document here, you're going to see 3 different auditor opinions. The first one is towards the front of the document, and that's our audit opinion on the financial statements as a whole. That auditor opinion is what we call a clean or an unmodified opinion, meaning we did not take exception to any of the financial statements or the disclosures included within the document. The second opinion, well, the second and third opinion, I should say, are towards the back of the document, and these relate to the internal control matters in accordance with government auditing standards, the city is required to be audited under due to the type of entity that the city is. The second opinion towards the back there is the report on compliance. That relates to the federal audit or the single audit, the compliance piece of the audit that's performed. And both of those auditor opinions are also considered to be clean or unmodified, so it's, you know, good news.
That's the stuff on 154 and 158?
Yes, it starts on 154. The compliance opinion starts on 156 and goes to 158. Yes.
Okay.
So that's really the nuts and bolts of what most people really care about within the document. If we switch over and start through,
Abby, wait,
Yes.
before you leave that, what's it take to be a low-risk auditee?
a low-risk auditee. So a low-risk auditee means that you have a single audit performed in each of the 2 prior years, and also means that you had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control during each of those prior 2 years, and that the data collection form, which is a required form that's completed after the audit for the federal government, gets filed timely. So if my
What part of that were you not meeting then?
if my recollection serves, the city has not had material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in either of the 2 prior years, but I believe it was in fiscal 20, there were not enough federal expenditures to require the compliance audit be completed. So there was no single audit performed during that year. So you're not considered to not be a low-risk auditee because you did something wrong. You're not
do it.
considered a low-risk auditee because during that 1 year, you didn't have to
Yep.
have a single audit.
Good explanation. Just didn't seem right when we don't have any damn debt hardly at all or anything, so,
Right. Again, nothing that you did wrong in either
Yep,
of those
I'm with
2
you.
years.
thanks.
Any other questions specific to this document before we give you the roadmap? Okay. Well, we'll go through then what the other document that you have in front of you that has kind of the red stripe across the front. This is our audit communication letter, which goes through certain required communications between the auditor and management and the auditor and governance related to the audit. So the first, the table of contents page, this just gives you kind of the overview of what we'll cover. But if you go to the third page, the required communications, again, kind of a high-level overview of what we're going to talk about related to required communications for the audit. So the scope of our audit, it is for the year ended September 30th of 2022, conducted in accordance with our contract that was dated July 22nd and signed, I believe, by Tobias. Our responsibilities and kind of the inherent limitations to an audit kind of go together. I like to think about this section of the letter as talking about, you know, what am I supposed to be looking for? As much as I'm sure Hannah would love it if we came in and looked at every single transaction as part of the audit, that's not really the purpose of an audit. Our audit approach focuses more on a risk-based approach where we're identifying financial statement line items or financial statement transactions that have, you know, maybe more risk, and that may be because of the type of entity or because of the significance of a transaction during the period. But we don't come in and look at every single transaction. If I was going to do that, I would have to be here probably all year long, and Hannah really wouldn't like me. So just a reminder that an audit is not designed to look at every transaction. We're looking to ensure that the financial statement numbers that are included in the document and the disclosures are what we call reasonably correct, materially correct. We do have certain independence requirements related to our audit of the city, so it means that I can't come in and do certain things for the city because I have to be independent enough to audit the city. And as a reminder, our audit does not relieve management or those responsible for governance of their responsibilities for the financial statements. Our auditor opinion does include a section related to group audits, and we've kind of included some language here in the slides as to what that group audit work is. We do not audit the financial statements of the Beatrice Public Library Foundation that is brought into the city's financial statements as a discretely presented component unit. So our responsibility as it relates to that section of the report, we rely on the auditors that audit that one specific component, but we don't necessarily look at those numbers in detail. The next slide I'm looking now at page 7 talks about the compliance piece. So the OMB uniform guidance is the audit, that compliance audit we're performing over the federal awards. It looks at internal control over financial reporting, and on compliance, and it specifically looks at the compliance for the one federal award that was considered to be major this year. That was the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Cluster was the one that we tested this year. Again, we noted that those are considered to be clean opinions towards the back of the document. We do also look at the schedule of federal awards in its entirety, present the schedule of findings and questioned costs. That's where you pointed out the not considered a low-risk auditee. And then the data collection form, which is that required in addition to item, I would say, that gets submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. Hannah and I actually took care of getting that submitted today. We've included a little bit of information on the next slide about the other information that's in the audited financial statements. So I know everybody wants to go home. You see it's 162 pages, I believe. Everybody wants to go home and read it cover to cover. It's thrilling. I get really excited about it. I know nobody else probably does. But our responsibility is not to audit every single page in the document. We look at the basic financial statements and the footnotes. Within the ACFR, there is some additional information that's presented, and that's presented so this document can receive a certificate from the Government Finance Officers Association for excellence in financial reporting. So if you look at, I probably won't be able to find it now. I don't know my Roman numerals. XIII. 13. That's the certificate from last year. It has been submitted for this certificate for fiscal year 22, but this is a really high achievement to have your financial statements awarded this certificate. Part of what is required to be included in the document that is not really a required part of the financial statements would be things that are included within the introductory section of the document and the statistical section of the document. Great information to have. Again, it's a high distinguished honor to have that award, but it's not something that we're able to necessarily audit. So we've included that in the letter just to provide information about what we do on those areas. Starting on page 9 then, the qualitative accounting matters section, this is where I said it really provides kind of a roadmap. So where I would say I'm gonna go home and maybe read an ACFR, put my boys to bed and read it. I know not everybody wants to do that, so we point out kind of the high points, the things that you as council should be aware of and understand as it relates to the city. So we'll point out the significant accounting policies. Those are in note A to the financial statements. The two items there that we want to point out relate to fund accounting and the reconciliation between the governmental fund financial statements and the government-wide financial statements. So the difference between the modified accrual and full accrual basis of accounting. Also the determination of any potential component units for the city. There was one new accounting pronouncement, and there's a slide a little bit later on that talks about the adoption of GASB Statement 87. So we did adopt that this year. It was required for the city to adopt. But we'll touch on that again here in just a minute. Related to any unusual policies or methods or alternative accounting treatments, we did not identify anything that governance would need to be aware of, so we've included that no matters are reportable within those sections of our letter. The next page, page 11, talks about management judgments and accounting estimates. Again, if you wanted to pick up the document and maybe look at some specific sections that were of particular importance, I would say that the bullet points listed on this slide, really under management judgments and the financial statement disclosure sections, would be the areas that I would point you to. The next slide talks about the adoption of GASB Statement Number 87, which again was required to be implemented for fiscal year end 2022. This standard really required that all leasing transactions that were not considered to be short-term and not cancelable by either party, or by both parties, be reported on the balance sheets and statement of net position for the city. So it did require some additional time and looking at the financial statements, the disclosures, and really making sure that we had a good understanding of how that information was captured by the city to ensure there was appropriate financial statement reporting. So that was new this year, that new standard. Page 13 goes through any audit adjustments. So we have a requirement to disclose to governance any audit adjustments that we propose as a result of our audit. We had one audit adjustment that we proposed in the water fund specific to accumulated depreciation on capital assets and a loss that was recorded on a disposal of the capital assets. Audit adjustments are never fun, but I can tell you that this particular audit adjustment was not considered material to the financial statements, but it was over a threshold that required us to either record it in the financial statements or to pass on it. So ultimately, if you think about the sheer number of transactions that flow through the city, I would say to look at it and say there was one audit adjustment is still quite a feat when I think about the dollars and the transactions that flow through the city. We also disclose if we have any uncorrected misstatements or what we sometimes call past adjustments. There was one past adjustment that we worked with Hannah on this year related to some long-term receivables from the state of Nebraska. So council may be aware that the city has received notice that they're party to certain funds from the state of Nebraska for opioid settlements and the Johnson & Johnson settlement money. Really, we looked at that from a materiality perspective, and again, it was over our threshold that we needed to do something with that item. However, we didn't feel that it was material enough to call, a significant deficiency or a material weakness in internal control. And really, the conscious decision was made because we're not sure the timing of when that receivable will be collected, exactly how much will be collected. So we've recorded that as what we call an uncorrected misstatement. Also, partly as a way.
Was that in this document?
Is it an ECFR? I don't know. Is it?
It's not, I didn't see that in.
No, so it's not included in this
Okay.
document. It's just an item that we report to governance as that past adjustment.
Okay.
So that really it's we passed on it as a way to not have to track that as a receivable because the receivable is going to go out for, I think, 10 or 15 years.
And you don't know how much it is, and you don't know when you're going to get it.
Right.
So you can't.
Right. So you
no.
can't
I
record it.
I just thought I did read the document. I just thought I'd missed it.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. The last few pages then, where it gets to the other matters section, so we've listed in here as an other material communication, the representation letter that is signed by Tobias and Hannah. We've also listed in here I'm going to call it an other deficiency related to segregation of duties, which again, not uncommon for a city the size of Beatrice. I'd love to tell you, hire 5 more people. then your segregation of duties goes away. But I also understand the budget constraints that's not possible. So there is some risk there. I think that's something that Hannah and Tobias evaluate every year. But it's inherent in the size of the finance department, the size of the number of people that have their hands in that information. The last 2 pages then are just some other matter items. So as part of our audit, even though we didn't identify significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in control, we did have some other items that we identified as maybe room for improvement, or the first one here you see is another new accounting standard. So the GASB has been ever busy. I think at last count, I think we're up to like GASB Statement 101 that are all coming down the pike at various points in time. And so these other matters are really just things that we'll work with Tobias and we'll work with Hannah to ensure that they get reported appropriately in the financial statements as they come due. I don't know if that's the right terminology. That's all I have, other than to say thank you for letting me talk about the audit for a few minutes with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has at this point, or if things come up after today, I'm happy to hop on a call or answer questions at that point too.
Gentlemen, questions?
Yeah.
Is it okay if I call you Abby? Is that all right? Okay. So Abby, I'm more interested in how the whole thing functions and through an operation basis than I am trying to, and I also read this. You're not the only person who read the friggin' thing. Yeah. So,
I actually, like, I'm
but
usually people don't. So.
Isn't there a quiz?
I can send you one.
I forgot that.
we were supposed to get a little compensation.
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay, so
Why I mentioned it.
these are just general questions, and you may or may not be able to answer them because some of it is opinion. All right. So the way I read this, we need to do this within 6 months after the end of the fiscal year. Is that right?
Your financial statements to receive the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the GFOA need to be submitted to the GFOA within 6 months.
So we're pushing it right now.
Well, it's been issued.
Okay.
This document's issued. It's final. It can go.
Well, my question is it necessary for us to look at 6-month-old numbers? Can this be done sooner than half a year later?
This is pretty typical time frame.
I know it is. I don't care about that.
I would love to tell you it could be done sooner. The city as an entity that has to report on certain funds on a modified accrual basis of accounting mean that the city can't even close books until 2 months after year end.
Yep.
So then you look at timing to have the audit done, get the full document prepared. I mean, as Tobias said, this is very typical timing for not only Beatrice but most other cities across the state.
Okay, my question is there a reason why it has to go 6 months? And I ran an investment firm for 40 years, so I've read more financial statements than probably at least most people in this room. So can they be done soon? I mean, these numbers here are nice numbers. I mean, they show great cash positions and everything. But does it take 6 months after the end of the fiscal year for us to actually get this done, or can it be done sooner? That's my question.
I would say we can look at timing for next year.
Okay, that's good
and-
enough. So, in your position, and thank you for everything that you do for us, all the way around. But in your position, do you run across other first-class cities that you do the same work for?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able, in a very general manner, just talk to us about how good or bad is our financial position? As far as long-term debt is concerned, how do we relate to other first-class cities? and just our general cash position for the city. How would we relate with other first-class cities that you've been exposed to?
So I don't know that without looking at some numbers, having them in front of me, that I could necessarily answer that. I can tell you from a financial perspective, the
Right.
fact that you have a clean auditor opinion, you don't have going concern considerations included in your report, that those are all very positive things.
Yeah. And I understand that, Abby, and I figured that's probably what you'd say, but you can understand from our standpoint that it would be really interesting to know in Nebraska how we compare our long-term debt with other cities of our size, how our cash position compares with other cities of our size, how our overall financial condition of our city compares with other first-class cities. I didn't figure you could answer, but I thought maybe I'd ask, I could get something out of you. But
I can point you to the fact that all municipal reports, cities and counties, are posted on the Nebraska Auditor of Public Accounts website. So if you were really curious, you could go look at the
do
Nebraska
our own
Auditor of
analysis of
Public
the
Accounts.
comparisons.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I mean, this document electronically would get posted out there, as well as those from every other city, I believe, down to village that has audited
Yeah.
financial statements prepared.
Would you consider us having too little or too much cash?
I don't know that I can answer that. That's more of a management.
Then I might as well just shut up, shouldn't I? Thanks, Mayor.
So kind of piggybacking on what Terry asked, and I pretty much ask the same questions every year, but the thing that we got that's on page 13, the excellent and auditing report.
Oh, sure.
So how many other first-class cities reach that level? You can't necessarily compare us offhand, but how many other, compared to other cities our size, how many other communities get that we've received?
I kind of knew this question was asking or coming, and I didn't go out and look. I can tell you that Forvis in Nebraska audits several other cities that do submit their reports to the GFOA for that certificate.
So several is 3? Several is 30.
I would say we personally audit in the 5 to 10 range
Okay.
that submit that, but there are others that we don't audit. So again, you can see that if you go out and look at those financial statements, you'd be able to identify which ones completed a full ACFR as opposed to just the required piece that is the financial statements.
Cool.
The difference in your document, if I were to give you page numbers, so if the city wanted to complete only the required piece, you'd start on page 1 and you would go to page 82. Everything else on the front end and the back end is what is required to be put together in addition to the true requirement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I just really have one more comment that, in my reading of this, it looks to me from an outsider's point of view that we're in a very good cash position. We have very low amount of bonded debt. Our capacity is much larger than what we have right now. And I think that we should congratulate Tobias and Taylor, the administration, and the past mayors and city council for getting us in the position that we're in right now. Because I don't see how anybody could look at this without saying that we're in a damn good financial condition. So I appreciate you guys' work on doing that in the past.
Thank you.
Yep,
And to go back to your question about the 6 months,
yep,
part of that is also our size. I mean, you have to consider Hannah's workload
yeah.
that comes in. And so, and from what I've seen, even from the college's perspective, when we did this, 6 months was really pretty expedient.
Yep. No, I have no doubt that that's right. It's just the closer we get to today, the better these numbers work. I mean, 6 months ago is not real meaningful except for her to tell us that we're okay, so.
Yeah, you look at, like Terry said, you look at, in this report, in 2021, we grew at about 10.1, and in 2022, we grew about, in revenues, we grew about 10.84. And so now we're looking at this, we're 6 months into that, nothing has really changed. I mean, dollar amounts that are being spent aren't probably in the community for like our revenue. The sales tax revenue that we're getting, they're not spending necessarily any more money, but they're not buying any more products, but the cost of the products is going up, so we're gonna have more sales tax revenue. And they're, just like the assessor's office, they rotate every 3 years. And they're reassessed every 3 years, except I know they're doing the commercial assessments now, so next year, or this year, come May, we're gonna have more revenue from that. And it's just hard to judge what the true revenue stream is, because this document to us is 6 months old.
Sure.
And so we collectively are trying to make a decision in real time based on what we can look at. The historical data you can look at, but I don't have to explain to you. You understand the problem, so.
I would note that your updated financials are in the monthly report.
Yep.
So if you do want to see where we're at up to usually that month or within a month or where the monthly report comes out, they are listed in there.
Yeah, the only problem with that is, it's in this report, I looked at it, and on one page it gave it all. You did all the math for me. And in the monthly report, when I read your monthly report, I gotta do it with a piece of paper and a pencil beside me, so I can write down all the columns and add it up. I can't follow a 68-page document you give me once a month, pick out all the ends of it, and with a running total and go, okay, that's where we're at. I mean, I can look at this and go, okay. And I was wrong, because I had thought I had done that in the last month when I read it, and I was about $3 million off from what we have, so.
That's no problem.
Yeah, 3 million, but I was 3 million short, so I guess it was okay.
That's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem, so.
We got Morgan as mayor. Mob will take care of that shortfall.
I would also like to take this time to applaud Hannah Bell. She has jumped into some big shoes and done it very amicably, and we thank you because you do such a good job. We do feel very comfortable with the transition and also with the numbers that you give us. So thank you very much.
Anything else, gentlemen? And thank you for your time, and thank you for dedicating a few minutes tonight and making the drive here. We definitely appreciate it. Hannah, nice job. And we thank you.
Well, as I mentioned, I appreciate the opportunity to get to come speak with you all. It is important information, so I actually am very excited that others have read the document cover to cover. It makes me feel not quite so nerdy accountant.
Well, just to make you feel any better, I had a week to read this. Terry got it this morning and read it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Under miscellaneous, the next regular city council meeting is April 3rd, 2023, at 7 p.m. here at the BPS Administration Building boardroom. Ted, motion.
If there's nothing else, move to adjourn at 7:33.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yo.
It passes. Meeting's adjourned. Have a safe night.